Hi, everybody. Welcome to Mighty Blaze Crime Time, the first of our double header today. I'm Jenna Blum, and I'm parachuting into Crime Time as the co-founder of the Blaze to welcome our erstwhile Hank Phillippi Ryan, who is our star of Crime Time, our WHDH 37 Emmy award-winning writer and author in her own right of 13 books, but soon to be 14, right, Hank?
Yep. Soon to be 14. The host guest is coming up. Absolutely. Welcome, Jenna.
Yes. Oh, thank you. Thank you for letting me come in today. And I'm here to present our guest, Sara Paretsky, and also our first ever Trailblazer Award, which is an achievement award that Blaze wants to give to authors who have really changed the game in his or her genre, which Sara has done. And Sara, we are so grateful that you have joined us to be the recipient of our first ever Trailblazer and to talk to Hank on Crime Time. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Well, it's exciting. It's an honor, and I'm very touched. Thank you.
We are really honored to have you. So a couple of words about the Blaze for those of you who are joining us anew for the first time. The Blaze is a team of 35 creative professional volunteers dedicated to connecting writers and their readers in the age of COVID, Delta, Omicron, whatever the variant is now, and beyond. If you like what you see here, please give us a like or a follow on Facebook, on YouTube, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, Goodreads. We are ubiquitous. And please consider signing up for our newsletter at www.mightyblaze.com so you'll never have literary FOMO ever again. No more FOMO. Nobody likes that. Sara, thank you for permitting me to take some of your valuable time to do that. I would like to say a few words about you. Before there was Lisbeth Salander or Stephanie Plum, there was V.I. Warshawski. In 1982, author Sara Paretsky revolutionized the mystery world when she introduced VI in Indemnity Only. By creating a believable investigator with grit and smarts to tackle problems on the mean streets, Paretsky boldly challenged a genre in which women typically were either vamps or victims. Hailed by critics and readers, Indemnity Only was followed by 19 more best-selling Warshawski novels. I have the hardest time saying Warshawski. I said that.
You nailed it. No.
Oh my God. Okay. Henry. I'm so sorry. Henry, enough.
Henry has a hard time saying it too. So
I think he actually did better than I did. Okay, dogs, that's enough. So sorry. Okay, let's get back to you. The New York Times has written that Paretsky always makes the top of the list when people talk about female operatives, while Publishers Weekly said among today's PIs, nobody comes close. Not only, Sara, has your own work broken barriers, you have also helped open doors for other women. In 1986, you created Sisters in Crime, a worldwide organization to support female crime writers, which thrives and progresses to this day, as we know, because Hank also is a member of Sisters in Crime and president. Yes, one of the past presidents. And this earned Sara Ms. Magazine's 1987 Woman of the Year Award. And I think I remember seeing that. I'm a big Ms. fan, as we all are here at Blaze. More accolades followed. British crime writers awarded her the Cartier Diamond Dagger, which I hope was actually a Cartier Diamond. Is it an actual dagger?
Well, it's tiny, but it is an actual dagger made of gold with a diamond ruby, and sapphire chips in the hilt.
Okay, that is fantastic. We might have to see that a little bit later if you feel like taking a tiny break. We would like to see the Cartier Diamond Dagger. For Lifetime Achievement, Blacklist won the Gold Dagger from the British. You have a lot of daggers in your house, I think. British Crime Writers for Best Novels of 2004, and Sara has also received the honorary degree of Doctor of Letters from several different universities. The actress Kathleen Turner played VI in the movie of that name, and Paretsky's work is celebrated in Pamela Beer Briggs' documentary Women of Mystery. Oh, in God's name. Today, Sara Paretsky's books are published in 30 countries. We are so honored to welcome you today to receive the Trailblazer Award, talk to our wonderful star, Hank, and now I'm going to get off and discipline me as some dogs. So please,
I'm happy that Henry's barking. It means that if my dog starts acting up, she won't be the baddest dog in the studio.
No, he is the baddest. He is the Leroy Brown of dogs. And on that note, I'm going to wink off. Ladies, enjoy. Thank you again for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jenna. Sarah, it's so wonderful to see you. And I love that Henry was barking, don't you? Because as Erin is saying in the comments, there is a hero dog in your book as well, and in your life as well.
Well, my dog is never as well behaved as V.I. Warshawski's dog, but it is the dogs in Overboard who set the story in motion. And they are kind of the heroes of the book. They do a lot more hard work rescuing abandoned runaway teenagers than V.I. herself does.
Well, let's talk about this. I want to talk about this fabulous book, Overboard, and I want to talk about your life, and I want to talk about why you are exactly the perfect person to win our first ever Trailblazer Award. I have to say, and I want you to look at all the comments that everyone is here applauding you. And we, all of us in Mystery World, the women writers of Mystery World, would not be here without you. I would not be sitting here without you. All of us who are mystery writers would not be here without you. I wonder if there's a way for you to talk a bit about how you feel about that. I mean, it seems like such a dopey question, but was the idea of legacy and sharing and encouragement part of your sort of psyche from the beginning?
You know, first of all, I think it's way overstating to think that a writer as gifted as you are, Hank, wouldn't be in this room if I wasn't in this room. I think one of the things that I did was give people the courage to find their own voices. And the mystery world wasn't such a welcoming place for women writers when I was starting out, but I didn't realize that. You know, Sue Grafton and I published our first books in the same year, 1982, and we both got a lot of very nice press, even if not very nice sales. And so we just took for granted that that was what happened to all writers. And then we learned, as we started going to national meetings, that that wasn't the case at all, that women were almost always overlooked when it came to book reviews, which is how libraries and bookstores make their decision on what books to buy or what books to stock on their shelves. So I was hearing through 1985, 86, just a lot of exhaustion from women writers. And I was inspired by the late, great Flo Kennedy, the great civil rights lawyer, who said, "Don't agonize, organize." And I thought, well, so I put out a letter to all the women that I knew at the time to come to a meeting at the 1986 BoucherCon in Baltimore, and said, basically, are you ready to organize? If not, then let's stop agonizing in public. Let's just go back to our keyboards. But there was really a pent-up demand for action, and that was how Sisters in Crime came to be.
It's so interesting that you decided to sort of lead, you and Sue decided to, and well, tell us about this. How did it actually happen? Was there a hotel room or a restaurant, his apartment? How did
the BoucherCon Hotel, and you know, these are never glamorous hotels. They are big convention hotels. My editor at Ballantine, Marianne Eccles of blessed memory, actually paid for stale sweet rolls for the 26 women that I knew. We came into a side room off the ballroom at whatever hotel it was in. It was in Baltimore, but that's all I remember. And we just talked it through, and everyone was eager to be involved. And people who are sadly no longer with us, like Dorothy Salisbury Davis or Jane Langton or Charlotte McLeod. So I went back home with this list of names and addresses, sent out a letter to everyone, and they sent letters to their friends. And when we had about 100 people interested, we did a questionnaire. What do you really want most? And there were two things that were the top of the list: camaraderie, place to connect so that you didn't feel quite so isolated working. And the other was book reviews. So Jim Huang, who was then the editor of the Drood Review, which covered every mystery published, he gave us a list of 1,000 thrillers published in 1986. And the 100 of us went through all of our hometown newspapers, national magazines, and so on. And we just tabulated reviews. And we found that a book by a man was 7 times more likely to be reviewed than a book by a woman. And that was balancing for, taking into account how many books by both sexes, all sexes, were being published in that year. And so, we knew we needed the industry. We weren't going to go head to head and say, well, you rotten expletive people. No, we just started writing to them saying, are you aware that you're not covering this book, this book, this book? And really, they were incredibly responsive for the most part. I mean, including the big outlets like the Washington Post or the LA Times, New York Times. And they started giving us serious attention. And then we started our own books in print. That was a project from Linda Grant and Sharon McCrum that we took to libraries and bookstores. We created our own little speakers bureau. We started going to local libraries and offering to do workshops or talks. And it just kind of grew from those 26 people in Baltimore to the 4,000 plus around the world today. So it's been really amazing to me to see. I'm not active in the running of the organization anymore. I don't have the energy. When I see what these young women are doing, I'm just blown away by their commitment to libraries, their commitment to diversity, and all of the many inventive ways they're expanding our mission to. The mission is really to have a place where people on the margins find a voice. And that is something that the current generation is working hard to make happen.
You're just bringing tears to my eyes, when I agree with you, but I think about, 26 women or however many and stale sweet rolls and what you have developed today. It must be so heartwarming, as you say, to see that this is progressing and growing and how you all really made this huge change. And I am never going to be one to argue with you, Sara Paretsky, but I'm telling you that I wouldn't be here without you. And I embrace that with all my heart and all my gratitude, I have to say.
Thank you. I know that you've inspired a lot of women also behind you. I hear from them all the time. So
thank you.
That's great.
That's lovely. And I want you to make sure that you look at the comments, because Beth is here and Mark is here and Adolph is here and Margaret is here and Shannon is here. And so many people are here, Karen and Aaron and Anissa is here and Catherine, 2 Catherines and Lynn. And Jane Langton was one of my very favorite authors. I have to say, I still talk about Diamond in the Window. We'll do that another day. But today, let's talk about Overboard, because that is your 21st V.I. Warshawski novel. And it is brilliant and innovative and heartbreaking and instructive and educational and riveting. And just even talk about the title for a second. Where did it's so layered. Where did that come from? And what do you mean by it?
Well, the title, actually, it's interesting that you think that it's layered and subtle. The title was a last-minute punt. Oh. The original title was going to be Double Dirty, which was the name used for a floating crap game under the Chicago River bridges. It's actually, the floating crap game still exists, according to one of my friends who used to drive a truck for the mob and who used to play that floating crap game. But around 1900, when newcomers to the city were testing their luck against the old hands, they would throw dirty dice, a double dirty, and clean out the greenhorns. So I thought that would be a great name for this book, in which the dice are constantly loaded against ordinary people who are just trying to get by, make a living, dealing with all the hardships of modern America. And then, after it was already being out there on Morrow's website, or HarperCollins website, we did a title search and found that there were 10 books called Double Dirty, and they were all very hardcore porn.
Oh, that's a situation.
And so I thought, well, I could expand my readership in new and unusual directions. But then I thought of all of the angry mail I would get from readers. I bought Double Dirty thinking that it would have all this sex in it, and there isn't one single obscene act, and I want my money back. And so I thought, let's go back to the drawing board. And my agent actually suggested Overboard, which I think is a great title. A lot of the book takes place in, sadly, the Chicago River, which is a kind of a cholera-infested it's really not so much a river as a piece of sludge falling up the city. And VI falls in. One of our clients falls in, or they're pushed in. And people are going overboard, both literally and figuratively, as the stakes get higher and higher. And I have to say, I love this jacket. I mean, it's just Morrow. This wasn't my design, believe me, but it has this ominous feel of an urban bridge at night, and only Warshawski would be brave enough to walk out on that bridge. I'm telling you, I would not.
Well, let's talk about her, because this is the cover is gorgeous, and it does draw you into that little light in the middle, and what is she looking for, and what is there. And I do love the idea of not only the water of overboard, but that people are going too far, that people are pushing, and that, you know, your themes throughout your novels, no matter what the topics are about people who are selfish and greedy and trying to get more than they deserve, and trampling people who, as you say, are just trying to do the best they can. But one of the things I love about your bio is that it talks about how when you created VI, that she was not a victim or a vamp. Why was that important to you? And talk a little bit about where she came from.
So that was really what propelled me into wanting to write a crime novel to begin with. This is the form that I still like to read more than anything else, history or serious fiction or whatever you call it, fiction. Crime fiction is still my go-to place as a reader. But as I started reading hard-boiled fiction when I was in my early 20s and came on the works of Chandler and Hammett, it's exactly what you said. Women were either vamps who were using their bodies to try to get good boys to do bad things, or they were victims, which meant that they really had been vamps and were getting their just desserts by being murdered, or they were sexually chaste, which meant that they could not even tie their shoes in public without adult supervision. And I was part of that first generation of women entering the professions and entering management in large numbers. We'd always been there in small numbers, but we were meeting some support from the men around us, a lot of opposition. We were having to deal with the issues of being trailblazers, of being gate crashers, I want to say, more than gate openers. And when I thought about the kind of character that existed in these novels, I thought what I really wanted to see was a woman like me and my friends who was doing a job that hadn't existed for us when we started school. And so VI came out of that sensibility.
It's interesting. I mean, my very first job in broadcasting in 1970 in radio, my first day on the job, there was I know you remember this, you all in the comments, in my typewriter roller, there was one of those pink while you were out notices, remember those? And someone had typed on it, expletive deleted, although it said the expletive deleted you, Hank, we don't want you here.
Oh my God.
Welcome to being a reporter. I was the only woman, and it was my first day on the job, and that was my welcome. And so I understand this. I understand how you felt and how she felt. So how did she develop, though? And how did you name her?
So how did I name her? You know, when I started, I grew up in Jenna was saying it's hard to say Warshawski. I think the hardest word to pronounce in English is rural. But I grew up in rural Kansas. And although we certainly were racists along with everyone else, every other white person in America, we weren't hyphenated. You know, you were an American. You weren't a Polish, Irish, or whatever American. So when I first came here in the summer of 1966 doing volunteer work in the civil rights movement, it was one of the things that just really hit me about Chicago was a strong identity with ethnic or racial roots. In fact, when I was working as a secretary after I'd finished my community service, I was working in the political science department at the University of Chicago, and hyphenated students expected me to get them out of fines or into closed classes. And I would say no. And they would say, "You're a traitor to the Polish nation." And I was like, I am a secretary. I am not grand enough to betray an entire country. But when I sat down to write, I thought, so VI, my detective, really had to reflect this kind of ethnic identity. And I knew that it would be impossible for me to write from an African American or a Latinx point of view, and really from an Irish point of view as far as that goes. But one of my grandfathers came from what was Poland when he came here, not anymore. So I thought, okay, I'll make her Polish, but I'm bad at ethnic origins of last names. So I thought Warsaw, that's in Poland. Warshawski, that has to be Polish. So that was where the name came from. And then the initials just seemed to go with, see my face on screen is a terrifying experience.
We love you. Keep talking. You were saying the initials just came to you.
They just seemed to go with Warshawski. And so for the first 6 months that I was writing about her, she didn't have names. And then I burdened her with these terrible names. Her mother is an Italian refugee, and she was named for Victor Emmanuel, who united Italy. And then her mother was a would-be opera singer, and the only opera she ever actually performed in was one of the versions of Iphigenia, which you can pronounce any way you want to. It can be said so many different ways. I say Iphigenia can be Iphigenia, Iphigenie. So just relax. Henry the dog, you can just bark it out however you like. But
so that seemed to
fit. I was naming her today. I might give her something a little less, I don't know, strange, unusual.
Well, it works beautifully. And the thing about her, though, is that she's smart. She has a big heart. She's very thoughtful. She is such a wonderful human being. She helps people. She notices people. And that's one of the things I love about her. She treats each person individually about their needs and about their goals. She's such a thoughtful person. And she's so brave. She's just braver than anybody could ever possibly be. What's it like to write about her and put her in the situations that you do?
You know, I was thinking about that this morning. One of the things that people comment on, mostly positively, sometimes negatively, is her physicality, and wondering why I put her through what I put her through. And I think in a funny way, it's a reflection of my level of rage at the injustices and inequities that keep growing in the world around us. And I'm not a brave person at all, and I'm certainly not someone able to be very physical. I'm not very strong, limited upper body strength. But for me, the physicality, most of what VI does is in her head. It's solving things by thinking. But the physicality is I think, just an expression of my own frustration and anger and wish that I could take on people with the intensity that my detective does.
Well, I mean, VI is you, but isn't you. And that's one of the wonderful things about fiction, and has carried you so gorgeously through. Now, this is the 21st Warshawski novel, which is quite amazing. I mean, as a detective, it makes sense that she can have new cases, and that's what can carry a series and make it be so logical that she comes up against problems. In Overboard, I mean, did you ever think you would run out of cases for her, or do you have way too many that she could never do?
Well, when I started and was mentored by the crime writer Stuart Kaminsky, who sadly has been dead now for a number of years, that I was working then in the financial services industry, and he suggested having her specialize in white collar crime because that was the world that I was then working in. I wrote my first 3 novels while I was working full time downtown. And really, you know, white collar crime just never goes away. It's kind of like, I don't know, kudzu. It just keeps growing.
Well, it's true. And the thing that you do, though, so gorgeously in this is your readers are smart. VI is smart. The stories are wise and timely, and remind me about that in a minute. But also, the reader, as you're reading the story, feels that we really learned something. We really have had some doors opened. into something that we didn't know existed before, but you do it seamlessly. Talk a little bit about writing about that, even specifically about Overboard, what the plot is of Overboard a little bit, and how you open some doors for us in that.
My goal as a writer, I'm a storyteller and an entertainer, and that's my number one goal, is to create characters and to create situations that entertain people. But I'm also someone who's very engaged with the world around me. And I think of myself as a Grandma Moses kind of writer. I was not an English major in college. I was a political science major. I never took a writing class. I think my writing might be better, or it might come more easily if I studied writing and studied the great writers of the English language. But so the things that are on my mind end up seeping into the books. It's not that I start the book and think, okay, this book must tackle this issue and make people think about X, Y, or Z. It's more that here's a crime that is really upsetting and damages lives. So that's the basis for a good story. Now I need to have people that are believable to me, people that I care about emotionally, even if that sounds strange to have an emotional attachment to fictional characters. But so it's the story and it's the people that drive my writing. And I may start, well, I have to say, Overboard, Louisa Luna, who's a newish comer to the crime field, her most recent book, she says in the acknowledgments, "This was my pandemic novel. I apologize for all the unconnected pieces to it." And I have to say, that cheered me up, because Overboard is my pandemic novel. I went back to the beginning 7 times, each time with a different cast of characters and different way of trying to tell my crime story. And finally, Overboard was so I threw out probably 500 or 600 pages over the 2 years that I was.
Sara, can I have those? I bet I could. I bet I could really use them. You know, let's talk about the specific story of this, though, and it has such a fabulous first line. It was Mitch who found the girl, and that there is no one who is not going to read on to read who's Mitch, who's the girl, and where was it found. Talk a little bit about that first line, and do you think it's as perfect? It's perfect, isn't it?
Well, maybe it's perfect, but boy, it was not. It was a long time coming, but I think that was the process for this book, and I hope I can learn from it. Although Sue Grafton used to say, the only thing you learn from the book you've written is how to write that book you just wrote. It doesn't help you write it.
That's great. What you should have done, right? Oh my golly, if you had to do it over, but it sounds like you did. But again, before we run out of time, because I want you all to know that you can read Sara Paretsky's The Warshawski books in any order. So you can run right out, not right now, but in about 10 minutes when this is over, and get your copy of Overboard, which is not to be missed. And it turns out that Mitch is a dog, and the girl is what the book is about at the beginning.
Yes, we don't know who she is. She's close to death. She has burns on her legs. VI thinks she's run away from a fire, a domestic violence situation. She gets her to a hospital, which is not so easy because they're down on the rocks. There's a part of the Lake Michigan shoreline along Chicago where there's a pretty steep hill that you climb, and the city has filled those with boulders and old bits of concrete. And the girl is hiding there, and she's almost dead, and Mitch smells her and runs down those boulders. And the first people who show up are a squad car who says, well, we've been notified that someone is violating city ordinance XYZ and is down in those boulders, and get out of here, you're getting a ticket, or which has actually happened to me, being on the beach, not nearly as dramatically, but my local beach, I've been there early in the morning, and people in the nearby high rises call the cops and say, someone's violating the no dog on beach ordinance. And so the next thing I know, an officer is there offering me a ticket, which is $200. But anyway, so so that's where it starts. VI finally gets the police to bring an ambulance. They rescue the girl. They take her to a hospital, and then she runs away. And so that's isn't thinking about her, but she runs away. And Dr. Lottie Herschel, who's a regular character in the series, lets VI know that the girl has run away, and then who she is and why she's run away again and who is after her become matters of really extreme importance, not just to VI, but to some corrupt cops, to some corrupt developers, to some people who are running a private for-profit nursing home. And VI just gets sucked into all of that.
Of course, and we do too, because it's riveting and heartbreaking and surprising and lovely, and exactly what a V.I. Warshawski book is meant to be. And I want you to all, we have about 10 more minutes, so I want you to all put your questions in the comments so we can ask Sara about that. And don't forget, if you put a question or a comment, just applaud or hooray or congratulations on the trailblazer or we love you. All those comments are fantastic, and you will be entered to win a copy, your very own copy of Overboard. Not this one, because I am keeping this. I am keeping this. But I love in your books, and we'll take the questions in about 1 minute, how you weave in the issues of the day with this riveting story. And I read one fantastic rave review of this book, which one of many, but this particular one said, thank you for not ignoring the elephant in the room of COVID, because you do have COVID in the book so naturally. And it works so beautifully, and it makes it feel so even more real. Was that a decision that you had to specifically make? What did you do that from the beginning?
Yes, it was a decision I had to make. And one of the things you have to be careful about when you're writing about current events in your books is they're ephemeral. Mm-hmm. And so you don't want to make a book about something that's not going to be there by the time, especially if you're like me and you work very slowly. The issue could have disappeared by the time you're in print. So I kept thinking, COVID, not COVID. And at one point, I was going to take it all out when we had the vaccine. And I thought, this disease is going away. There's no point in keeping worrying about masks and so on. And then it was clear that COVID is here to stay. And one of the things about it that seemed to me to work as a character definition was around the issue of how seriously do you take this disease? Do you use your naked face? Is that just how you like to be in the world? That's okay. But if you're using it aggressively to try to intimidate someone with your germs, then that says something very specific about you. And so it became context, a way to express character.
Yes, and it works gorgeously, as does the setting of Chicago, which is, okay, it says question time, I'm going to ask you one more, and that is, I was born in Chicago and grew up in Chicago, and the Chicago feeling of your novels, I mean, of this one in particular, is so throughout. Do you look at Chicago through her eyes, VI's eyes, or your eyes, or is it just how it is? How do you deal with the wonderful city?
Well, VI is a native, and I'm an incomer even after all these years, and so I think I still see it somewhat as an outsider. Mm-hmm. But this setting for Overboard is the Chicago River, which is a big industrial, it's barge traffic, and it's always been the way that supplies came into the central business district. But I've never paid attention to it, so I just have to put in one plug for my dog. I wonder if people can see her lying on the floor here. Anyway, never mind that.
A little bit more. We do want to see your dog. What's your dog's name?
Kiara.
Kiara.
Sara broke her foot during COVID, and my vet is right along the Chicago River. So I couldn't be in the clinic while they were bandaging her and x-raying her and whatnot. So I was walking up and down the river, and that was when it really came to life for me as a setting for this book.
Well, I hope Kiara is better, and I hope your dog knows that they were the inspiration for this wonderful novel, Overboard. Margie is saying, love your glasses, and we all do. Jenna was saying they're very LA, so that's cool as well. Let's take some of your questions, Sara, if you have a couple minutes to answer questions from people, because look at all the comments we have here. Question time, it says, and we will see. Well, Anna's asking, is Mitch based on your real dog?
No, I have never trained my dogs as well as Mitch and Peppy are trained. My dogs think when I say come that I'm offering some obscure Sanskrit word meaning run off and find another chicken bone.
Or do something naughty, of course. And Anissa, welcome Anissa, is saying, what is the best advice you have received from another author? Oh, I'd love to know that.
That's a really good question. Dorothy Salisbury Davis, who crime writer well-known in the 50s and 60s, not so much now, but she's been dead for a number of years. But she was a friend and an important mentor in my life. And she offered the suggestion that if the scene or the story as a whole isn't working, turn it upside down. Meaning look at it from through a completely different lens. So one of the things that Dorothy would like to do was to, let me just turn off this phone.
It's your agent calling.
That Dorothy liked to do was, if you were in a situation, like a simple situation, I'm running late, I need something to eat, I'm calling room service. Who would you be? The waiter, the writer, the person who's waiting for you? And how would you tell the story if from all those different points of view? So if you're going to turn the story around, maybe you're going to change the point of view that you're telling it from, or where you start in the action. So when I'm stuck, that really is the advice I hear in my head.
It's wonderful advice. Let me do that to you as well. Let me change the point of view a bit and ask you, when people ask you for advice, do you offer it?
I don't think that I have good, helpful advice. I'm happy to talk to people and talk through the issues that are on their minds, but I don't know, a good editor, and I've been fortunate to have several of them, is someone who helps you tell the story that you're trying to tell, not the story that he or she would tell if they were writing the book. And so if people want advice on where they are in a story, I just ask them to talk me through it. And that often helps them see where they want to be. But certainly if people want advice on the industry, I'm happy to tell them what I know, but I feel like what I know is so out of date. The industry has changed so much in the 40 years since I started being published.
Well, I think your best advice is something that you've said throughout this interview, and that is evident in this book, Overboard, is that to just remind people you're just telling a story. You're telling a story, just like when we were growing up and someone said once upon a time. And opening the book Overboard takes you into another world. The world, your real world falls away, and you go into the book with V.I. Warshawski and her world. And that is a good storyteller. That is the sign of a good storyteller. And I think that's what you do so well as I was so impressed by when you said you threw away hundreds of words. That's persistence. And that's another thing that you're so good at.
Yes, I suppose that doggedness is it's both a good trait and a bad trait, but it certainly does define me.
And that has been throughout your life. Doggedness has defined you. And we are all the better for it. And we are so grateful to you, Sara Paretsky, and congratulations on this soon to be best-selling Overboard, which you should all run out and get. And we are out of time, but there's time now for the Wheel of Fun, where we are going to spin the wheel and see which of you lucky commenters will win your very own copy of Overboard. So Bosie in the back room, if you can start us with the Wheel of Fun, and we will spin that to pick a winner. And we're going to tick, 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 tick until that happens. Let me see if Anna's asking while we get ready for the contest. Did you plan it to be a series? Anna says.
I was trying to see if I could write a novel from beginning to end. I didn't have a series in mind. When I published Indemnity Only, the first book in the series, it didn't sell a lot of copies, but in 1982, it sold enough that the publisher wanted a second book about VI. And then one thing kind of led to another. So here she is today.
Well, we are happy about that. Is there another one in the works?
I've just started working. I've been on the road, despite the fact that we don't often do in-person events anymore. I've wanted to go around the country and be in some of my old favorite stores. So
Well, here comes the wheel of fun. And the winner has spun, and the winner is Valerie Brooks.
oh, Valerie.
We missed the spinning, but we will have the spinning next time. I wanted you to see that, Sara. And I can tell you that Valerie, who is a stalwart sister in crime, has also said in the comments, and I hope you will look at that when you have a moment, saying that she feels that she wouldn't be where she is either without you. So we are together on that.
If I was helpful at all, thank you.
Well, thank you all for being here today. Let me say to you, Sara, again, congratulations on the very first Trailblazer Award. You have set the tone for the award. You have set the tone for all of us. I wish I could send you a tiara, and I might, in hopes that you would wear it in the next interview. Would you wear it if I sent it to you?
If you sent me a tiara, I would wear it. Not on the streets of Chicago these days, though.
No, that would be, well, that would last for about 30 seconds, maybe. But again, congratulations on your award. We are so honored to be able to bestow it on you.
It's an honor to me. Thank you very much.
Our pleasure. And congratulations on Overboard. I'm trying to get it to look right in the light. It's too glary, but you all know what this is. Overboard, the 21st V.I. Warshawski novel by the fabulous and famed and a wonderful Sara Paretsky. Thank you, Sara, for being here today. And thank you all for being here today. Don't move, though. Don't move, because in about 15 minutes, we will welcome Scott Shepherd, who has written a marvelous detective series. This is the second in his series. So he has something like 19 more to go, or 20 or something like that. I can't do the math to catch up with Sara. But Scott Shepherd's Austin Grant novel, Should I Fall? And Scott will be here at 4 o'clock for our regular session of Crime Time. So get a cup of coffee, get a cup of tea, get a cup of whatever you want, and join me back here in 15 minutes. And again, we thank you to Sara Paretsky. We thank all of you for being here today. And remember, it is always safe inside a book. And we will see you next time.
Thank you, Hank. Thank you, Jenna. And thanks to everyone who joined in. I'm very pleased.
Great. Thank you all. We will see you next time.